What's up, everybody? I'm Duncan, and the pickle has made his way to the new world. Welcome to my guide on how to defeat Deviljho. While the Deviljho is not an Elder Dragon, it is certainly on par with Elder Dragons when it comes to how much damage it does and how much health it has. Taking a look at the in-game information about the Deviljho, we can see that only its head and its belly are weak spots. Both of these points are 3-star weak to slicing, impact, and bullets, so no matter what we're using to hunt the Deviljho, we are going to be focusing on the head and belly. In addition to those weak points, the tail is severable, but it does take very little damage compared to those areas, so it's going to be a little harder to sever than most monster tails. When it comes to elements, Deviljho has a 1-star weakness to ice, so do not use ice on Deviljho, a 2-star weakness to fire and water, making them acceptable but not great choices, and finally a 3-star weakness to thunder and dragon. I prefer to focus on thunder against Deviljho. Dragon is also an excellent choice if you are using an elemental weapon which focuses on elemental damage, mostly dual swords, sword and shield, other fast weapons like that. You want to make sure you have either thunder or dragon element. When it comes to status ailments, Deviljho has a 2-star weakness across the board to every ailment. This means that while he won't be super weak to any status in particular, it is actually a really good thing to bring status bows or status bowguns, which can then apply each status in order. As always with these guides, our next step is going to be looking at the Deviljho himself, and in particular the moves that the Deviljho has at his disposal. I think it's really important to note here that the Deviljho is a very large monster, which is quite high off the ground with its belly and head, which are its weak points. With shorter weapons like the sword and shield, you will be struggling to hit its weak points. Be patient and work around the Deviljho's moves to try and hit the head when it's in a vulnerable position. With regards to those moves, unlike the Elder Dragons, who have a very clear difference between their weak attacks and their strong attacks, the World Eater has no weak attacks. Every attack the Deviljho has will hit you for quite a bit of damage and will send you flying if it hits you. We're going to start from what I think is the least strong attack and go all the way up to his most devastating attacks, but we're not going to separate them into weak, medium, and strong classes like we have in previous videos. Starting off with Deviljho's most basic attack, he's a very hungry monster, and he shows that with his forward chomp attack. He opens his mouth wide, rears back a tiny bit, and then chomps forward with a strong bite. This attack does a fair amount of damage, and like most of Deviljho's facial attacks, where he bites or swipes with his face, if he is drooling and hungry, he will inflict you with defense down. So watch out for that and have armor powder ready to boost your defense back up as well as that of your teammates. In order to dodge this attack, as soon as you see the tail, roll perpendicular to Deviljho out of the way of those hungry jaws. This is one of the easiest attacks the Deviljho has to dodge, as it is very, very linear. Next up, we have the Sideswipe Chomp. This is a slightly stronger chomp that covers a greater area, but it does have a larger tail. Deviljho will rear his head back to either the left or right, depending which direction he's going to chomp in, open his mouth wide, just like with the forward chomp, and then do a swiping chomp to the side. Just like with the forward chomp, if Deviljho is drooling, this will inflict you with defense down. The Sideswipe Chomp is a little bit trickier to dodge than the forward chomp, as a perpendicular roll is just going to get you caught up in the large area of bite that Deviljho has here. The best way is to either roll away if you're out of range, or roll towards Deviljho and under his neck if you're in range. This means that when it comes to dodging this attack, your judgment is all that matters. Are you too close and therefore have to roll under Deviljho's body, or are you too far away and therefore want to roll away from Deviljho to avoid this chomp? If you are in the perfect zone where you don't know which way to go, either way is probably fine. Next up, we have a longer range attack that moves more of a distance towards the hunter, and that is Deviljho's forward lunge bite. This is very much like the forward chomp, except he will take a slight step back and then lunge a great distance forward with his mouth open. This will do more damage than the standard chomp, as well as covering more ground, so watch out for it, and again, it can inflict you with defense down if you get that drool on you, so watch out for Deviljho's drool. Just like the forward chomp, this attack is very linear, and a perpendicular roll should get you out of it just fine. Just make sure that after your roll, you're actually out of the hit zone and you don't need to roll again. Sometimes rolling twice is safer. Next up, we have Deviljho's forward chin swipe, another attack that once again, if he's drooling, can afflict you with that defense down. Deviljho digs his chin into the ground and swipes it forward at a high speed. This attack will launch you into the air if it hits you and does a lot more damage than any of his bites, so watch out for it. In order to avoid this attack, much like his chomps, you want to roll perpendicular to Deviljho as soon as you see the tail. This attack actually has quite a long cooldown period afterwards, which will allow you to get a couple of easy hits off on Deviljho to do some damage to that face. much more powerful version of this single chin swipe that Deviljho uses is his multi-chin swipe. Deviljho rears up slightly before digging his chin into the ground and swiping diagonally forward 3 to 5 times. The last swipe does extra damage here, and as always, this attack can afflict you with defense down if it hits you while Deviljho is hungry. This attack is very dangerous, but there are 2 easy ways to avoid it. The first, if you are close enough to Deviljho when you see the tell, is to roll towards Deviljho and get under his legs. There is no hitbox for this attack from his legs going backwards, so if he uses this attack and you're under his legs, he will charge away from you and past you, giving you an easy follow-up chance to hit him in his tail as he retreats, and even in his head once he finishes the attack. If you are too far away to roll through the attack and under Deviljho's legs, you want to roll away. You'll either be close enough to roll towards him, or you'll be far enough away that you can roll away. You want to roll away diagonally in the opposite diagonal direction to the first swipe that Deviljho goes for. So if Deviljho is swiping diagonally to your right, you want to start rolling diagonally to the left, as he does this attack an odd number of times, so he will swipe towards you one less time if you roll in the opposite direction to this swipe. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but it's not too hard to read which direction he's going to swipe in, and then you can easily roll in the other diagonal away from him and get away scot-free. A slightly harder attack to avoid is Deviljho's hip check. This attack has an absolutely massive hitbox, but the tell is quite easy to spot. Deviljho will turn his body perpendicular to you and then charge towards you at a high speed. His entire body, including the tip of his tail, becomes a hitbox during this, and the tip of his tail will flick forward right at the end, extending the range of the attack way further than you think it should go. This attack has caught me off guard any number of times, but it is, again, rather easy to avoid if you get the timing down. You have one high skill option, which is to roll directly through the hip check. The hitbox travels so far that it's actually quite an easy move to evade roll through with your iframes. Again, if you're not too confident with your iframes, I always give you guys another option, and that will be to roll perpendicular to Deviljho in the direction towards his head with a slight angle away from his body. This should get you under his head and below his neck, where you won't actually be hit by the hitbox because Deviljho is so tall. If he is a small crown Deviljho, I'm afraid you're out of luck with this method, but if you roll that slight angle away from him, you might just get out of range as well. Just like most monsters in this game with a tail, Deviljho has a tail swipe attack. The same as most monsters, it will go twice. He will swipe around 180 degrees 2 times, giving him a total of a 360 degree turn, and he will wiggle his tail slightly and plant his feet right before he does the swipe. This attack is actually one of the easiest tail swipes in the game to avoid. Again, you do have the iframe option of rolling directly through his tail as it travels quite quickly, but the other option is just to get between his tail and his legs, close to his legs. Because Deviljho is so tall, you'll be well outside of the hitbox, and you can actually just wail away at Deviljho's belly and legs while he's wasting his time doing this attack if your positioning is correct. One of the most annoying attacks that Deviljho has in his arsenal is his stomp. And he used to only in older games have this stomp with his right leg, but now we have discovered that Deviljho can stomp with both his right and left legs, so I guess he learned some new tricks on his way to the new world. Deviljho lifts a leg up while standing on one foot and then slams that foot onto the ground at a high speed. If this foot itself hits you, it will be a pin, and being pinned by Deviljho is no walk in the park, I promise you, so you really don't want to be hit by the foot. But that's not the end of the problems that this attack presents, because it causes a tremor around it in quite a wide radius, which will cause your hunter to lose his footing. This is the most annoying thing to happen to you in a hunt against Deviljho, where you're in the zone, you're under his body, you're dodging his attacks, and all of a sudden he shakes you off your feet and combos you to death. The only real way to avoid this is either to block it with a shielded weapon or to roll out of range of the tremor zone. Final option here is to wear your Rocksteady mantle or to have the tremor-proof armor skill. That makes this attack into a complete waste of time for Deviljho 99% of the time, as his foot will very rarely hit you, and you can wail away at his belly as he does this attack. Unfortunately, that's not the only attack Deviljho has that causes tremors. Deviljho also has a large leap attack, which can be any range from right on top of you, where he just leaps on the spot and causes tremors, or he can leap from almost halfway across an area, where you see Deviljho and he's a good distance away, more than critical distance with a bow or bowgun, and then he leaps across the map towards you, tremoring, sometimes pinning you if his feet hit, and doing a great deal of damage. This leap is rather easy to avoid if you see him crouching down ready to jump. Roll perpendicular to the direction he's facing and get out of way of the big leap, and then punish the landing with a good attack of your own. The most devastating move in non-enraged Deviljho's moveset is his chicken dance and slam. The chicken dance from previous games is back, and now it has an extra powerful slam at the end of it. Deviljho will rear his head up, lift his arms into the air, and almost go completely vertical while dancing for 2 to 3 steps before slamming his head into the ground and then lifting it up, launching a boulder towards you. The best way to avoid this, as soon as you see him start to chicken dance, roll towards Deviljho's tail and away from the front of Deviljho, as you really don't want to be caught in this slam. If you are at a distance from Deviljho and he's doing this in order to launch a rock or boulder at you, you want to roll perpendicular to Deviljho and get out of the way of that boulder, as that will do a huge amount of damage as well. The chicken dance is a devastating move, and I have seen it one-hit KO hunters when Deviljho is enraged. Speaking of enraged Deviljho, when Deviljho becomes enraged, his scars open up, his body glows with a sinister red glow, and he gets access to one extra attack, and that is his mighty Dragon Breath. The Dragon Breath has had a massive cosmetic upgrade in this game, but it still functions pretty much the same way. Deviljho will lift his head and breathe fire from his right to his left. So if you're facing him, the last area that will be hit by the Dragon Breath is on his right. That means if you are too far away to roll forwards and get underneath Deviljho's body before the Dragon Breath hits the ground, you want to roll forwards and diagonal towards Deviljho so that you don't get hit by the Dragon Breath initially, and then you can roll forwards again before the Dragon Breath reaches that right-hand side, or from Deviljho's perspective, that left-hand side. I'm trying to make it very clear which direction this comes from, as this is an important technique to get if you're just too far away to instantly roll under Deviljho. Please don't try and roll away from this attack. It has a deceptively long range, and if you're close enough that he starts to do this attack, you're probably close enough that a roll away is not going to get you away in time. If your weapon is sheathed, however, a panic dive is an option. If you do get hit with the Dragon Breath, please eat a Nullberry as soon as possible, as it will afflict you with Dragon Blight, which will strip all the elemental damage from your weapons. Before we get into the meat of fighting Deviljho and the tips and tricks, I am going to give you guys an extra tip, which is pretty unique to Deviljho. Deviljho is a very hungry monster and will become hungry very quickly during a fight. That means that you can feed him in order to status him several times throughout the fight. This should make your fight a little easier, so remember to pack your tainted, your tinged, and your sleepy meats. Before we go out of moves, I do want to mention one thing very briefly, and that is a new mechanic that Deviljho has where he can pick up other large monsters and use them as a weapon. This seems to be the sort of mid-range large monsters, the early game ones, so the sort of size of Great Jagras, Kula Yaku, Dodo Gama. I've seen him do it with Tsitsi Yaku. He can pick up the monster and use it as a weapon. When he has the monster in his mouth, his swipes are replaced with the monster swipes, which do a lot more damage. His slam and chin and chomp attacks are replaced with a monster slam attack where he slams the monster into the ground. If that hits you, again, it does a lot more damage than the previous versions of those attacks. And finally, he has a new attack where he can throw the monster at you with a very long range. I've actually seen the Deviljho do 2,000 to 2,500 damage to a monster while it's in his mouth, and then pick the same monster up again later in the quest. So if you're farming these smaller monsters, it's actually really handy the Deviljho does so much damage to them during the hunt. The only thing I can say to avoid these attacks is just stay out of the way of Deviljho while he has these monsters in his mouth, or try and trap him to make him drop them, or flash bomb him to make him drop the monster, as these moves are absolutely devastating, and because the monster is a giant club in his mouth basically, it massively increases the range of these attacks and the area that they affect. The next step here, as always, is to give you guys basic tips and tricks on how to beat Deviljho with each weapon. Now, these guides aren't super in-depth for every single weapon in the game. It's generally split into classes, and the classes I generally choose are heavy, slow weapons like the Greatsword and Hammer, faster weapons like the Dual Sword, Sword and Shield, or Insect Glaive, shielded weapons like the Lance and Gun Lance, and ranged weapons like the Bow, Heavy Bowgun, and Light Bowgun. Obviously, throughout all these different weapons, there are differences on how they should be used, but the general idea and the general slight tips and tricks that I like to give you guys before you tackle Deviljho should help you out, especially when combined with advanced knowledge for all of Deviljho's moves, which I hope you have after watching this video so far. When using heavy weapons on Joe, the most important thing, and I know I'm a member of the Greed Squad, but the most important thing is not to get greedy. Heavy weapons do a huge amount of damage, so what you really want to be doing is waiting for an opening after one of Deviljho's big attacks to get a big attack of your own off. When using Greatsword, don't be afraid to just use a regular unsheathed swing rather than charging, as a true charge is very hard to safely achieve against Deviljho and will probably cost you more than it gains you in the long run. The hammer really benefits from using the level 2 upswing charge to close distance and catch the Deviljho's head, and after quite a few of these, you will eventually knock him down and be able to use your big bang attack. Save your charged greatsword swings and your level 3 charge hammer attacks for when the Deviljho gives you an opening when he's very tired or when he's just used a big attack. Aerial attacks are going to be fantastic with these weapons as they will mount Deviljho very quickly, and Deviljho has quite a long knockdown. The greatsword has just enough time to get a true charge off on the first knockdown from a mount if you manage to get charged right away, right as the mount finishes. So you want to finish the mount on his head. The hammer will be able to get a complete big bang attack, finishing the mount pretty much anywhere, so that's going to be a lot of damage on Deviljho. His tail is a good target if he is knocked down, but you will do less damage in return for cutting that tail off and getting that extra chance at a Deviljho gem. When using shielded weapons against Deviljho, you actually have a much easier time with this whole flow of the Deviljho fight, which is get out of the way or block an attack, and then hit him back with a big counterattack of your own during his quite long pauses between attacks. The gun lance really shines when you manage to block an attack, then upswing, slam, and get a shotgun blast off before blocking the next attack, giving you a really good rhythm in the fight against Deviljho and doing huge amounts of damage over time. The lance has a similar way of blocking and then comboing off against the beast. Fast weapons are a little bit of a struggle against Deviljho if you're not used to him yet, as you don't have the luxury of being much more patient like you do with the heavy weapons which do more damage per hit, as you need to be getting lots of hits off in order to get your damage, but equally his attacks do so much damage and can combo you so hard if he catches you with one that you'll often find yourself being comboed from 100% to dead after just one small mistake during the hunt. Fast weapons will, unlike the heavy weapons, have a much easier time hanging out around Deviljho's legs and belly, however, so you might want to hide under his legs, getting quick attacks off, dodging to keep yourself under those legs and keep yourself safe, obviously watching out for his big stamps, while attacking his belly and legs to get trips. If you're feeling braver, you can actually get lots of attacks off on his head. When it comes to fast weapons, I do want to make a special mention of the dual blades, as that cartwheel of death out of a slide attack where you roll down the monster, slicing it to pieces, has a huge number of hits on Deviljho. You will do so much damage with that attack that it's actually incredibly spammable, and I fully expect to see speedruns of Deviljho where he's spawned on a slope and 4 people with dual blades go absolutely to town, just tripping him and knocking him down and hurting him constantly with the cartwheel of doom. Finally, we're on to the guns and bows. The thing to remember when ranging Deviljho is that he is a very slow, deliberate, and telegraphed monster. So don't be greedy, don't try and get one extra shot off if you see the tell for an attack. Get out of the way, read the attack, move, roll, get away, and then start unloading again. You won't benefit much from one extra shot before you roll and almost getting hit in that roll, even if you get out the way, than if you just rolled sooner and started shooting from a different angle. Remember to focus on the head and belly, don't let your shots veer to his back and legs, which they do have a tendency to do, and if you're using the bow, use your Dragon Piercer very, very sparingly, as the charge up time of that attack does give Deviljho time to absolutely womp on you. I really enjoy using heavy bowgun against Deviljho with a shield on it, as most of his attacks are easily blockable, and then you can reposition if you have to. If you're using light bowgun, I think that Rapid Fire Thunder element is a very, very good choice on Deviljho, as he does have a very large thunder weakness, and you can do a lot of damage with those attacks. Thank you so much for watching this video, everybody. I hope it helped you in hunting your Deviljho. If it did, remember to like it, share it around with other people who might be struggling, and I'll see you guys next time. Alright then guys, that's the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, you can click up here to see more videos of this type on my channel. If you want to check out something else a little bit different, then you can click down here. And if you want to see everything that I upload, you can click the subscribe button right here.